This is MedSpa Mayhem, the podcast all about the chaotic world of medical aesthetics. From Botox to lasers to IV bars, learn how to tell real versus fake, legal versus illegal, and safe versus potentially deadly. Hear the crazy stories inside the med spa world and find out what questions to ask and how to spot the people cutting corners. I'm your host, Dr. Kate D. Together, we explore the wild west of medicine that is the aesthetics industry. Hi, this is Dr. Kate D, and today I'm going to do something very different. I'm going to read a short passage from my book and talk a little bit about an episode that happened to me in the past and what happened afterwards and how it changed me. And if you've already read my book, then you might have heard this story, but I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about life in general and my philosophy and what's influenced me to be doing this. So I talked a little bit about what it was like in medical school for me and how rotations in the hospital were so foreign because nothing was really a meritocracy anymore. I know that reflects reality, that the world is not a meritocracy, but when you're a super science geek and you're just studying and trying to do well in school, that's kind of all I knew, was studying and getting a good grade. And then in third year of med school, you start going on rotations, and how smart you are matters a little, but everything else matters a lot more, and it's hard to describe, really. So I'm just going to read this little short thing. This is on my surgery rotation, which was at a kind of smaller Catholic hospital in New Haven called St. Raphael's, and they had a separate residency program. The residents there came from all over the place, and I didn't really realize it at the time, but they really did not like Yale medical students. So they didn't treat us very well. So one day during week 5 out of 6 long weeks, we admitted a new patient for treatment of a rectal abscess. He was a very feminine gay man who was booked to a female bed before the intern did a proper exam on him. The offensive jokes went flying. My team was led by a chief resident who is a small man from Texas, and he led the charge in demeaning homophobic humor that seeped into the elevators and the cafeteria. They skipped visiting his room entirely on rounds. I would quickly run back and check on him and let him know of any updates while my team steamed ahead into the operating room, or OR. I was mortified and squirming. In my head, I had told them all off 100 times, but I bit my tongue. I held it in for as long as I could. But one evening, after several days of their evil mocking, I just couldn't take it any longer. I was walking into the parking garage at the same time as my chief resident and told him, "I feel very uncomfortable when you make fun of this patient. Your jokes are out in the open in places where anyone could hear, and you don't know where his family might be." He says in his southern drawl, "Well, I come from a town in Texas where you could be beaten with an inch of your life if you're gay, and if he doesn't like it, he doesn't have to come to me as a surgeon." Without thinking, I fired back, "Well, this isn't Texas, and we don't treat people that way here. And he had no choice whether to pick you as a surgeon. He's a service patient. You have to treat him the same as you treat everyone else." I don't remember what he said in response, if he said anything. What I remember was what happened next. And I can tell you what happened next. He almost failed me. And I was called into the dean's office. This was my very first rotation in third year of med school. And I was called into the dean's office, and the dean asked me, "Well, what happened?" And I told him what a terrible experience I had and how poorly they treated all the Yale students, really, but especially the women. So all women were called chicks, and they were demeaned and made fun of. And it just really was demoralizing because you just have to suck it up and take it. Anyway, I was crying in the dean's office, and I don't really cry all that often. But he said, "Look, I will look into it. Just put this behind you. Go forward. Keep doing your thing. Don't worry about this." And I'm like, well, okay. So he spent the next few weeks, months investigating, asked every fourth year medical student what their experience was at St. Raphael's Hospital. And he got a ton of complaints and horrible, horrible stories, much worse than mine. And it was apparent that, it wasn't just me. And he ended up putting that surgery program on probation. He stopped sending medical students there. They were required to do some sort of remedial training. I don't really know what. I do know I heard later that they joked about it with other subsequent students saying, well, what are you going to do? Report me? In any event, it really scarred me. It really was one of the most awful things. I kept my head down after that. And I thought to myself, well, I really have to pick my battles. This really, I don't know. Was this a big enough one? Should I have said something? Should I have not? I was really worried that with one bad grade, the grade was good. Okay. So in medical school, there are 4 grades that are equivalent to letter grades. So outstanding is an A, and excellent is a B, and very good is a C, and good is a D. So he gave me a good. And so I can tell you that through the rest of my 3rd and 4th year of medical school, I did get outstandings and excellence the rest of the time. But this really was a lesson. You're supposed to keep your mouth shut. You're supposed to just suck it up and just take it. And if you can't just take it, then there's something wrong with you. And so I didn't have anything like that after that. My experiences were very positive, but I really was scared. I was scared to speak my mind. I was really scared to ever point out when something was wrong, because I truly thought that I would be punished if I did. And this stuck with me for a really long time. And I've had one instance in my life that I also wrote about in the book. And if you read about it, it's the chapter about harassment. I really don't want to delve into that today. But it is really hard when someone singles you out and retaliates against you for speaking truth. And so speaking truth to power is something that you have to really have the guts to do. Part of my gathering my wits about me and being able to stand up and talk about the industry that I've chosen. So the aesthetics industry I've been in for 10 years. And it's phenomenal, okay? There are some really amazing treatments that we do. We have amazing patients. We have really great relationships with each other and with our patients. And this is not about negativity or not liking different kinds of providers. Everybody has something to offer, everyone. But because there is so much money in the aesthetics industry, it has incentivized so many people to get into it quickly without really investigating whether what they're doing is really legal. Nobody calls a lawyer first. They just put up a shingle and they start doing things. And then so some of them know that they're doing it illegally, but many don't know that they're doing it illegally. And there's all levels of knowledge out there. And if people don't know, they just go forward until someone tells them that they can't. But really what's happening is they're going forward and offering these services. Oftentimes they have no license to practice medicine, and they could really be harming someone. And a lot of times they don't even know that what they're doing is the practice of medicine. So I can read for you a post that was on Facebook today from an esthetician who posted this. It was an anonymous question in a forum. Question: how are estheticians selling semaglutide? And by the way, semaglutide's spelled wrong, but that's okay. We have a medical director at our spa, but only offer facials and lasers. Clients have asked for the service. How do we offer it or sell it? Just being an esthetician. We want to make sure we do it the right way, but no, we can't offer it ourselves? ? Any ideas? ? So, I mean, that's a sincere, innocent question, right? But there were lots of responses on all sides. So just so you know, semaglutide is Ozempic. It's a drug, and it can only be prescribed by somebody who's allowed to prescribe a drug like a doctor, and in some states, a nurse practitioner. And actually, and PAs who are working under a doctor can also prescribe in most states, in many states. So, but estheticians cannot prescribe a drug at all, ever. And they can't administer IV therapy or injectable drugs. Now, there are some states that have kind of a loophole to that. And if a doctor trains somebody to carry out certain procedures, they can delegate to someone even if they don't have a medical license. I personally don't think that should be legal. And it's illegal in the vast majority of states. But in any event, estheticians in no state can prescribe any kind of drug. And there's a lot of pushback on this post from different people wanting to cut corners and whatever. But in this country, if you practice medicine illegally without a license, that is a felony. It's a felony in every state. And the practice of medicine includes anything that you would do to a person that breaks the surface of the skin. So that includes Botox, fillers, microneedling, laser, body sculpting, all of the things that we do in a medical spa. It's all the practice of medicine, with the exception of facials. Obviously, estheticians can do facials and light peels. And then there are some states that allow estheticians to do certain medical procedures under a doctor. And that includes Washington State. We have a special level of certification for master estheticians that allows them to do certain medical procedures like laser hair removal, as long as they are working under a doctor and the doctor has prescribed the medical treatment. So what needs to happen is the patient goes in to see the doctor. The doctor says, oh, yes, you're a good candidate for laser hair removal. I'm prescribing that to you. And then a nurse or a master esthetician in some states can carry that out. Otherwise, a nurse or a master esthetician can't practice medicine on their own. So why am I pointing this out? Well, most people don't really know. There are people practicing this, right, offering medicine without a license who don't even know they're breaking the law. And most consumers don't really know, what questions to ask when they walk in to make sure the place is legit. The place looks legit. It's beautiful. It's spa-like. People are wearing scrubs. It looks legit. But how can you tell? And I'm out here talking about it. I wrote the book because I found that the longer I went, the more and more and more people were cutting those corners and breaking the law and making a lot of money doing it, and actually undercutting the costs of anybody who is actually doing it legitimately. So if you are doing it legitimately, it does cost more. Buying real Botox is way more expensive than buying fake Botox, okay? But there's a really important reason why you would want the real Botox. So how do you know? And that's why I'm out here talking about these things. And I will say that a lot of people have said to me that they think it was the right thing to do to speak up to that chief resident, that it was really important to point out that kind of terrible behavior and that it was harming this particular patient. It was also harming others. It was also harming the medical students working with them. But I will say that it was at a really great personal cost at the time. In the end, I did graduate. I did have really good grades. I did get high scores on my medical boards. I did get a good residency, so life was okay. But at that time, I thought perhaps my whole career was over. And it's been hard because if you're the kind of person who wants to point out the problems, a lot of times people don't like you. And for the most part, I've kept my mouth shut when it just didn't matter all that much, or maybe it only mattered to me but didn't affect others. But with this industry, I think that this affects millions and millions of people. And I think those millions of people should know what's going on. So I'm speaking out, and that's why I have this podcast, and that's why I'm here telling a new story every week. And I hope that it is really helpful and informative for people. And I really hope that people understand that I am really doing it for the benefit of all patients, all consumers, everywhere. The more you know, the better care you're going to receive, the more awesome you're going to look, the better your skin is going to look, and the happier you will be with anything that you might do for skincare or anti-aging. So I really hope that you enjoy the podcast and the book. I hope that it has been helpful. I will be back next week. I am going to be interviewing Dr. Christopher Rex. Again, I loved talking with him last week, and he and I are going to talk all about acne, and we are both hugely passionate about that topic, so I'm very excited. So again, thank you so much for hanging in there with me and listening and helping to pay attention to this issue and spreading the word to all your friends and your mom and your sister and your brother too. And tell your friends about the podcast. And if you can, please give us a 5-star rating in your podcast app. And if you've read the book, please write an Amazon review, because that makes a huge difference in the Amazon algorithm. And that will help other people to find the book. So thanks so much for listening, and I will be back next week. If you've learned something and like what we're doing, please tell your friends and give us a 5-star rating in your podcast app. If you have a question or a crazy story of your own you'd like to share, please send an email or voice recording to info@drkatedee.com. That's drkatedee.com. Or reach us through the website, MedSpaMayhem.com. And read the book. MedSpa Mayhem is available everywhere books are sold. Thanks for listening. This has been MedSpa Mayhem with Dr. Kate D. We are so grateful you're listening, and we hope you've learned at least one fun or possibly disturbing fact today. Don't forget to hit subscribe on your podcast app and leave us a 5-star review. And read the book. MedSpa Mayhem is available everywhere books are sold. Links and more can be found in the show notes and on medspamayhem.com.